Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Femmes in STEM, the podcast where I, Gabi, your host, have the pleasure of interviewing a woman from STEM each week in order to demystify the field from a female perspective. Since this is the very first episode, a little bit of background on myself. I'm in the midst of my bachelor's degree studying engineering and science at the Australian National University. And I've actually started this podcast for a science communication course. And I'm really hoping that through these episodes, you, the listener, will get a better idea of what STEM even is, and perhaps even be inspired to look into the field yourself, maybe study in the field or work in the field. As I mentioned before, I will be interviewing a woman in STEM each week, and for this very first episode, I am joined by my friend and a fellow ANU student, Meh-Ara Taseer. Meh-Ara, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so just to start off, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you're involved with STEM?
Yeah, so I am a fifth year university student. I'm studying engineering and science, much like Gabi, at the Australian National University.
Excellent. And can you just tell me a little bit about how you first became interested in STEM, like what kind of age you were at and what kind of pushed you into that field? You know, was it parental pressure? Was it like the potential job prospects in the future?
Yeah, so I have a pretty solid theory as to how kids get into science. So there's two main avenues. It's either dinosaurs or space, and I was a space kid. Because think about it, you look up at the stars and you're just like, what's going on up there? Or you look down at the earth and you're like, what's going on in there? So I was definitely a space kid. I think it also helped that my parents are both scientists. So a little bit of that parental pressure that you were talking about, which isn't always a good thing, but it did work out in my case. And I also had a really strange obsession with Jane Goodall, the primatologist. So it was a mixture of those things.
Yeah, I really like that take on like space versus dinosaur. I think, you know, I was definitely a space kid myself. You know, I often, you know, still tell my friends today that if someone were to offer me the opportunity to be, you know, put on a craft and shot up into space, I would immediately agree. So yeah, I love that that's, you know, part of that, you know, initial motivation into the field. In terms of actually like applying for the science and engineering degree, when did you know that that's what you wanted to do? Was it more at like a young age in your high school career, you know, maybe 13, 14, you know, years 8 and 9? Or was it really, you know, you got to crunch time and that's when you made the decision to apply for the science and engineering degree?
Yeah, so around early high school, I always knew that science was something I was interested in, and I had some really great mentors throughout, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. It actually wasn't until about year 11 and year 12. So ANU has this great program called the ANU Extension Program, where you basically get a taste of university while you're still in high school. And I did 2 courses through that. I did the astrophysics course and I did the engineering course. And that is where I learnt about engineering. And so that sort of veered me towards engineering and how I could apply my science knowledge and actually, you know, get a job out of it. So it was definitely later in that more application period that I was able to, you know, cement that I wanted to do engineering, but definitely had like an interest in science throughout.
So I'm assuming because you did have that keen interest in science that you probably did all the required courses like mathematics, chemistry, physics, whatever it was. You're all enrolled in them. You didn't specifically enroll in them because of the degree. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, you're bang on. So I chose subjects, and I think it's really important to choose subjects that you enjoy in high school. While it is good to like maybe aim for a vague area, you should be enjoying them because ultimately that's how you're going to do well in them. And then once you do well, once you're in uni, you can swap around. I don't think I've met a single person who hasn't changed their degree a little bit. So yeah, just do stuff you enjoy, but definitely like have a vague target.
So moving a little bit towards like our female perspective, a research by Youth in STEM 2019 showed that female students are less interested and far less confident in STEM subjects when compared to males, particularly in the engineering and technology areas of STEM. So in terms of actual figures, level of interest in STEM subjects for male students, you've got 55% interested in engineering, and for females, it is far lower at 28%. When you look at science, a little bit more even. Male interest, you've got 68%, and female interest, you've got 61%. when looking at confidence in getting good results in STEM subjects, for male students, about 50% of those in engineering have good confidence in getting those results, and about half, so only 26% of females have that confidence in getting good results in STEM subjects. So, really before you were going into university, did you have any doubts about kind of achieving the goals that you wanted to in university, or perhaps that when you did make that transition from high school to university, you'd see a drop in your grades or something like that?
Those figures are crazy because some of the most capable and intelligent engineers I've ever met are females. But yeah, absolutely, right? I think I had a slightly different experience because I went to a female, all-female school. So we were definitely, I think that really helped in fostering confidence a little bit more because we weren't constantly comparing ourselves to our male counterparts. But yeah, I think I found that as I got older, my confidence started to drop. And I think that's sort of what your figures reflect as well. And that when I was younger, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be an engineer. It'll be great. But as I got older, that imposter syndrome definitely started to set in. That being said, I think it was definitely at the start of university where that set in more so for me as opposed to high school. And I think that's once again a testament to having some really good mentors throughout that period. And I think what you're doing here is really important for that. For teenage girls to know that it's okay to not be super confident, but don't let that stop you.
Yeah, so I'm touching on that. I think we can all agree that representation is super important, which is a large motivation in this podcast. So would you say that's where that doubt perhaps came from in the first year of uni? Was it perhaps going in and seeing, oh my, there's a huge amount of men and, not so many women in my courses? Or was it maybe from a larger viewpoint, looking at women engineers and maybe popular media? There's not really any names I can really think of off the top of my head. Whereas for males, you've got a kind of, list of quite popular science communicators who are engineers. So what was it exactly that kind of started that feeling when you went into uni?
I think for me, I can definitely pinpoint it to almost an exact date in that, once again, I went to an all-female school and I rocked up to my first maths tutorial being the only female in that class. I was like, oh boy, this is what this is going to be like. And unfortunately, it really was at the start, especially with the bigger courses. It is hard to find other women. But I think once again, it was really good to reach out and try and find those female support circles. I think it's so important, and now I think we have a great gang of engineering females. We've done well in that respect. I think what you were saying with representation is definitely important in that seeing female engineers, female scientists in the limelight would definitely have helped with confidence. But I think that's what we're working towards now, and definitely in the 5 years that I've been going through university, that has changed so much already. And so we're definitely shifting that into a positive light for sure.
So moving through your career in STEM, I just want to ask you, what was your very first year of uni like, in terms of, level of difficulty of courses, just what the course content even was? Was it what you expected, or was it quite different?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I think at the end of year 12, I think everyone can relate to this in that it was crunch time and we were all working really, really hard. And I think I fell into a little bit of a false sense of security that I might be able to ease off on that pressure a little bit. And whilst going down from doing, say, 7 subjects in year 12 down to 4 seems like, oh, easy breezy, it definitely was not. There are a lot of contact hours, so compulsory in-person hours that you need to do in engineering and in science in general. And I guess I wasn't really expecting that as much. But in terms of what we learned, and I think ANU does a really good job of this, is that we started with our broader subjects. We did a lot of maths, physics, sort of making sure that we have our base down for the more technical subjects we'll do later on. And that was really good because that was a good way to meet people and, branch out to people not just in your discipline exactly. Yeah, so I guess the workload was challenging, but it definitely wasn't unmanageable.
So can you tell me kind of more about what studying STEM is like? A question or a comment I get quite often when I mention that I am studying engineering or studying science is, wow, you must be so smart. And I always think, well, I think anybody at a, university level course, they're probably pretty smart at what they do. So would you say that, studying STEM is as, it's crazy hard as it is sometimes depicted in popular media or by other people studying STEM? Or do you think it's difficult, but it is kind of achievable?
I won't lie to you, it is challenging, but I don't think it's as difficult as people make it out to seem. Once again, technical things can sometimes come across as quite intimidating, and I have had my fair share of late nights at the library, and the phrase "P's get degrees" definitely crosses my mind more often than I'd like it to, but it's ultimately, you get out what you put in, right? And the more effort you put in, it is so rewarding ultimately. And once again, you don't realize it, but it is such a group field, if that makes sense. So you work together with your peers, with your mentors, and that is what makes it so rewarding.
Yeah, I would agree that that's I think one of the many positives of studying in a STEM field. I can't speak for mathematics. We're here speaking for science and engineering, but yeah, that's definitely been one of my favorite aspects of nearly all of my courses in university, has been that collaborative feel in terms of just students supporting other students. So, if someone is struggling with, question 15B on their engineering homework, it's not necessarily, I'm just going to give you an answer, but there will be usually people floating around just, hey, I can help, just go through that with you. Or maybe I can go through a similar problem with you, and, help you with your comprehension. I think that is, a really good kind of community aspect of studying in STEM. And I hope that's an experience that people have at other universities. It's not something that is just localized to the Australian National University. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your majors, specializations that you are going into whilst you are completing your studies in your best layman terms, if you can?
Oh, that's quite the ask, isn't it? What is engineering? It is an age-old question. So yeah, in engineering, my major is mechanical material engineering, which I think if you look at it very simplistically, it sort of looks at how different objects, items, just anything in your day-to-day life are made or manufactured, which materials should be used, how these materials will work, how these objects will work in their application settings. So basically look at anything around you. I'm sure a mechanical engineer had something to do with it. And in terms of science, I've majored in chemistry and mathematics. I know I'm quite the party animal. But yeah, with chemistry, I've sort of leaned more towards that material side to sort of make sure it's a bit more cohesive with my engineering degree, and maths as well, I can't speak more highly of maths.
Yeah. And again, just a little bit about what kind of piqued your interest in those areas. At the ANU, we have a interesting engineering degree in which we are actually systems engineers. And in our first few years, as you mentioned earlier, we study, quite broad subjects before we do make that decision roughly towards the second half of our second year in, what we want to major or specialize in. So what was it that drew you towards those majors and specializations?
Yeah, so we're pretty lucky at ANU that we get about a year or so to figure out what we want to do with our lives. So I think it's been pretty consistent throughout my STEM career is that I've just made the bare minimum decision to get to where I need to be, and that I haven't made a decision looking further out up until I think I would say at the end of first year. So at the end of first year, I was really lucky enough to go on a NASA space camp expedition as a staff member, and going there and seeing the way these kids were being taught how to apply their degrees, their future degrees. They were in high school. But that trip was really important to me in that I saw that, wow, I can see an application for my degree in the aerospace field. So I started to slowly tailor my degree both to my strengths, which was in a lot of mechanical, maths-based stuff, and also to my interest, which was I want to be a part of this new endeavor that not new because it's been going on since the 60s, but but the exploration of space. Once again, I was a space kid, and I think I finally did a big loop back to it at the end of first year. So that's really what drew me towards that.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's super cool to hear. I love that space inspiration is coming back. Kind of shows that you can be what you wanted to be when you were a kid. And so you're actually in the R&D, so research and development engineering stream at ANU. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Once again, I'm quite the party animal. So yeah, R&D is a really great program that the ANU has. I think it's very unique to ANU in that you get the opportunity to do honors level research projects throughout the course of your undergraduate degree. They are shorter term projects, so a semester to 2 semesters long, but it basically gives you the opportunity to do research in an area that you're interested in. It doesn't have to have anything to do with your major whatsoever. You just need to be able to find a supervisor who's willing to take you on, who's willing to teach you, and you get that opportunity to do basically like academic work. Like some people have gone on to be published through these streams, and it just gives you that extra little insight into how your work as an undergrad can be applied in like the future of like these fields. And it's really good. It just helps you also build up your knowledge base as well. For example, I've done projects in optics. I know nothing about optics, but I'm learning about it as I go. And it also gives you the opportunity to look outside your field a little bit. I know that many students take on projects outside of the College of Engineering, which is just a great way to just expand your skill set a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's really excellent. I think it sounds like a great preparation for those who are interested in academia later in life. And that is really cool that you get that crossover into other, majors and other fields that you might not be focusing in, your kind of normal everyday courses that you do for your degree. So moving on, I just want to ask if you've actually ever done any like kind of professional work in STEM. So internships, work experience. If you have done that, what was it like, and what was your kind of role in like the organization that you were working in?
Yeah, so the pursuit of internships is a common struggle for, I think, all students, regardless of if you're STEM or not. I was really lucky. I had the opportunity to do a sort of research internship at ADVA, in which I looked at a dynamics modeling project, which, bunch of nerd stuff. But it was really good because it gave me an insight into how academics work outside of my own institution. And I was basically given like a small portion of a larger project to work on and sort of left to my devices. So it was a really good exercise in independent study and independent work. I've also taken on a project with a government body as well, which was a more consultancy-based project, for lack of a better word. But once again, really putting those system skills to the test. So it was a really good opportunity in both respects.
So at ANU, within the engineering degree, we are actually required to complete 12 weeks of full-time work experience under the supervision of an engineer. We need that to graduate. And I think it's can be frustrating at times, especially now when there is a lack of job openings in the field. But I think it's really important because I think there is some level of disconnection in what we study versus what work actually looks like. So touching back on the female perspectives, do you feel like you've had any advantages or disadvantages coming into your field as a female?
I think that's a great question, and I think it requires quite a bit of introspection. It's really interesting because at ANU especially, and I think across like academic institutes across Australia and even across the world, there's been a real push to sort of support diverse and inclusive backgrounds, especially in the STEM fields. And I think that's really great to see. And I think we've been really lucky that we've been a part of that. It didn't happen before our time. It's sort of happening during our time. And I think that's a really good reflection on, ANU's and like the college's part. That being said, there will always be issues. I think this is a constantly evolving problem that we're sort of dealing with. I think the main thing is, I guess, coming into a male-dominated field, I was quite naive that my perspectives and my experiences would be given the same weight as, let's say, I don't know, a white male. And while it is the case in most, like, I wouldn't say that there is like an institutional issue there, but like socially it was definitely a different dynamic than I was expecting. And I think making sure to be a bit more assertive about that and about your qualifications, once again, what we were talking about before, really squashing that imposter syndrome is really important, because ultimately you have to create the space you want to take up in a field. And there's data to back this up as well, so I'm just speaking more anecdotally, but I think we are more we have a greater tendency to try and take up less space. And I think being a bit more assertive and being a bit more confident in our abilities would definitely help with that. I think ANU has been great. They've got great a program such as 50/50. It's a student body that is dedicated to promoting gender equity in STEM fields, not just engineering. I was involved with them for a little while. That was great. They've got scholarship programs, mentorship programs. So it's definitely been a really great process to watch, but we've definitely got a while to go as well.
Yeah, I would agree, like, with everything you've said. I think at the ANU we've been, or at least I have been, quite fortunate not to experience any kind of blatant sexism in any of my subjects. I think particularly in engineering, as we mentioned before, it is a very like collaborative field, and I have felt personally that as long as you know I'm getting the job done, and if we're in a team, I'm helping out the team. My gender really doesn't come into play. And I think that's number one testament to these programs at ANU, but also to kind of like the spaces that like we have created like for women, just like in terms of friendship groups or study groups. I think that's been something that's assisted me a lot, and that's not necessarily something that's been like organized in a professional manner. I think we all kind of know that we just need to stick by each other. I think all of the women that I know in engineering are kind of real go-getters. We're here for a reason. We enjoy what we're studying. And if any of the other women in our courses or even in other fields need help, we're more than willing to help them out. And I think that's something that's like really excellent about ANU.
Yeah, and I definitely think that a big part of that credit goes to the female students and the female lecturers and staff members that have sort of gone through before us. I believe that they've done a really good job in, setting the precedent that women are more than capable of engineering, and we're sort of just trying to follow in their leadership. For example, when we started at ANU, the Engineering Students Association was very male dominated. Now 5 years later, it has had an all-female exec. In the past, we've had many diverse and inclusive events, and I just think that the more opportunities we are given, it's just going to get better from here on in. And yeah, like you said, I've never experienced anything particularly blatant, but you can always sometimes feel it, that things are just slightly off. But we're working really hard to fix that. And I think that the more female students we get coming through, the more female students we get sticking with it as well, will really help with that. Like, we are here for the long run, and I think we've made that really clear, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think that's really important to prospective female students to know that, we are here. Maybe sometimes it doesn't seem like we are, but we do have like a decently, large amount of women, maybe not when you compare us to other subjects, but we're here, like we show up for each other, and we are looking forward to many more females entering the field and taking up more space in like a really positive manner. So we're just going to wrap up. And I just have one final question for you. I just want to know, like, what would you say to your past self, perhaps a Meh-Ara who was 16 years old, 15, about a career or an education in STEM? What advice would you give, or any warnings perhaps?
That is a great question. I think the first thing I would say is don't be so hard on yourself. It is okay if you're getting a 90 and not like a 99. Calm down. Yeah, I think the other thing that I would say is that it is okay to struggle. You don't have to be doing well in every respect of the field. Like, you don't have to be nailing maths, science, engineering, everything to be worthy of studying STEM. It is not something that you achieve and that's it. It is a process. So I believe that if you have the interest, if you have the work ethic, and if you have the drive, anyone can succeed in STEM, because it is a very fulfilling profession in that the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. So just try your best. Don't be so riled up all the time. And just look forward to like the great women in STEM that you're going to meet in the future. And also think about it this way, that I had some really great mentors at that age, and like now I've had the opportunity to be a mentor for students at that age. So just think of all the great things you're going to achieve, and just think about the fact that you're going to help students in your position get through that tough part. And just more women in STEM. That's all we want.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I think I can relate to that a lot, especially that kind of like not being too tough on yourself. I think, women, we can be very self-critical. So yeah, just being kind to yourself. And I love that, it kind of coming full circle, that you were someone who needed guidance in the past, from female role models, and now you can be that female role model that's guiding other people. I think that's really important. And well, congratulations really that you have gotten to that point that you can be that role model for younger females. Excellent. That's where we're going to wrap up. I'd like to thank you again so much for coming on to the very first episode of Femmes in STEM. It has been a real great pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. Always happy to talk women in STEM.
Yeah, and that's it for our very first episode of Femmes in STEM. I will be profiling more women in STEM, some that have a little bit more experience working professionally and some that have quite different majors and specializations. So if you have enjoyed this episode, please come back next week to listen to episode number 2. Thank you so much.